flashing.
Okay, it is just 6 o'clock. We have a quorum, I believe. You should call the roll, David.
Malcolm is absent. Jack Ringham.
Here.
Greg Conlon.
Here.
Paul Jones.
Here.
Scott Lanes is absent. Marissa Dexter is absent. Jim Jans.
Here.
Alex Key.
Here.
Anthony Wynn.
Here.
John Mulbeck.
Here.
Council member Kerry Weiss.
He's here.
Okay, public comments. We're waiting now. Rapt attention.
Hi, Jim Massey, 701 Drive, Atherton. At a prior council meeting, I had stood up and I called for the resignation of 3 members of this committee for participating in serial violations of the Brown Act. And I also called for this committee to be trained in Brown Act and its violations. Having served as Finance Committee, we had that done, and I want to say that I stand by those comments. I ask again for those 3 resignations. The serial violations were an extremely short period of time, and these 3 individuals, based on their prior service to the community, should have spotted this and flagged it. Second issue, term limits. This is the only committee in the city that does not have term limits, and I think that contributed to the first item that I just addressed. There are members of this committee who have been here way too long, and you guys appear at only been to 2 meetings to run this thing as a little private club. And I think this committee members of long serving need to step down and new members be brought forward to serve on this committee. Not that you have not done a good job, because in all honesty, I think you have. So that's all I have to say for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. They're noted and they're appropriate. They're issues that you should have raised. As a matter of interest, we will have an instruction on the Brown Act at our next meeting.
I'm sorry.
We will have instruction on the Brown Act at our next meeting.
Inspection?
It's been instruction, teaching.
Inspection.
It's been scheduled. And it had to go around the city attorney's calendar. All right, with no more public comments, we can move on to the approval of the minutes for our February 5th meeting. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? None? I have one suggested correction, and that is, while we all remember with great pleasure the years that Kerry spent as our mayor, he doesn't happen to be mayor at the moment.
So we'll change that to council member?
Yes, sir.
It's required.
It's not a big issue. If there are no other comments, do we have a move to accept the minutes as
I'll move.
modified?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I will abstain since I wasn't there.
Okay, you may.
Thank you.
All right, that takes care of the approval of the minutes. We have no presentations. We'll get on to the regular agenda. And the first item on that agenda is the Peninsula Corridor Electrification Project. Kerry, do you have any insights on that from your meetings with the working group?
I can say that my understanding is that they're working in Atherton already at this point as far as polls and so on and so forth. I think that started a couple weeks ago.
That is coming in here now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where's that specifically?
Where are they working, Kerry?
Well, they were doing it right around the station in Fair Oaks a week or so ago.
Station in Fair Oaks, I think that's right.
But there's just the platform
Foundation.
part.
Yeah.
The foundation.
Platform.
Yeah.
Have they actually put in any polls yet anywhere?
I haven't seen any
Oh,
polls.
there have been polls in, and Robert sent around pictures of half a dozen pole structures.
Is that, oh,
You should all have received those.
Yeah,
In Atherton?
just not
No,
Atherton.
no, they're not in
Not
it.
yet.
this is what you have to look forward to.
So But you'll notice that several of the poles in those pictures have the long catenary, or the,
Yeah.
Long extension.
yeah,
The double.
supporting both tracks, such as they're planning to impose on us here.
I get updates every week from Caltrans. You can sign up for like construction updates, I think from the website. I forgot how I actually got on there. All of a sudden I started getting the emails every Friday where they say, for the next week we're doing this and this construction on the corridor, so I don't know if
Well,
anyone's
what-
interested.
What do you have to tell us from all that
Well,
good intelligence?
just to let you guys know that there is a way to get updates every week from them in terms of what's going to happen in Atherton. But in terms of what's happened the last 2 weeks, nothing. They have nothing happening in Atherton the last 2 weeks. That's all.
Do they send you a notice of what they're doing everywhere, or just if it's affects?
So basically, it's one newsletter to like anyone who's interested, and then they'll say like, okay, for the 25th Avenue project, these are the places affected, and then at the very bottom they have electrification, and they say we're doing work in this city for the next week. So they send that every week on Friday.
Kind of a summary of what's going on.
Excuse me, is that the same information you get from if you go onto their website and click on projects and then it gives all that information? Is that the same?
I'm not sure. I
Because
haven't.
I found that seems to me sometimes to be out of date and kind of not useful when I've looked at it.
I don't know. I haven't like checked what they have on the website with what they send to me every Friday. But
It's,
go ahead.
it's the same thing that electeds get, so I would assume it is what they think is the most accurate information, not that their website's not accurate. But as far as the email's concerned, it's the same thing that we get.
Okay.
Well, two items that I have found, we've all seen Hartnett's letter that said we don't care about what the governor says, we have our money and we're going to go ahead and finish our electrification project. And also, the first two EMUs are, they may be complete now, and they may be out here, I don't know. I missed the March Joint Powers Board meeting when that was discussed. But they're planning to test those in a section down around San Jose, so they'll be wiring that up before any of the rest of it. And they'll have to test those and do whatever they can to make them work.
Do we know if electrification is fully funded?
Well, Caltrain says it is.
Well, if the federal government is trying to claw back money from the High-Speed Rail Authority, might some of that money have gone to Caltrain for electrification?
Some of the they've given bond money to Caltrain. I don't know that they've given any federal money to Caltrain.
No, I don't believe so. The federal money was to be used in the Central Valley. In fact, that was a big part of that whole discussion.
So where did this money come from, the state?
Just came
No,
from
it came from
high-speed rail.
Proposition 1A.
Yeah. Probably,
Okay.
The bonds that were sold, presumably.
Yeah, well, the bonds have, some of the bonds
Some of the
have
bonds
been
have
sold.
been sold.
And some of that money has come to Caltrain, and they're, thank you very much, they have no intention of giving it back. But if the lawsuit makes that illegal, that might change. We'll come to that further on down in the agenda.
The cars that they're testing, do they have 2 levels of doors?
As far as I know, Jack, they're all designed with those 2 levels of doors.
Well, that is
Yes.
a waste. It is stupid. Because I go back a long time, and when I was a kid and riding the trains, they used to have at the end of each car stairways that went down. Some of the stops used to have platforms at train level. Some of them used to use steps. So when they had a level platform with the train, the conductor would go up and release a metal plate that would slap down and permit exit at the level of the platform.
Yeah, right, there's a metal plate in every vestibule.
And that would still work.
Yeah,
And it would release, I don't know how many seats per car.
well, there's significant losses by raising the ends of the cars to get those high platforms.
Yeah.
It's 20 seats or something like that. I don't know the exact number.
Are these two just a test?
No, they're all ordered that way, as nearly as I know, Jack.
Is there any opportunity to change it?
Now, Stedler has got their molds for stamping the bodies out, and they all look like that.
And as I understand it, as tours have gone through the factory to watch those cars move through, they're all exactly as ordered.
Yeah.
The two boarding heights, so.
Now, why they have two boarding heights when there are just 3 high-speed rail stations now planned for the peninsula, 4th and King, Millbrae, and San Jose, why they could not have low platforms on all our cars and have separate platforms at these 3 stations. That would be,
Well, it seems that high-speed rail is only going to the Central Valley.
well, that's the other part, but if it comes here, it's just those 3 stations according to their present plan.
But if they don't come here, which is very,
Well, then
Likely,
we've got
then
a
we've got an
strange
extra
collection of
set of
cars
doors.
running up and down
Yeah,
our
well,
track.
that's typical bureaucracy.
I'd like to explain it to you, Jack, but I don't know how. Okay, there, any other comments on Caltrain electrification? The next item on the agenda is the litigation, which, as you recall, is the suit against high-speed rail, claiming that the use of Proposition 1A funds for Caltrain is contrary to Proposition 1A, and therefore it is unconstitutional. And that was turned away in February by the judge in Sacramento, who really had made up his mind before any of us went into the courtroom. That has not formally been appealed as yet. They have been advised by someone whom I don't know that it would be a little easier to get that through if they have the Attorney General's permission to take it to the appellate court. And they have prepared all the papers and submitted them, and the Attorney General, who is now Sharon O'Grady, who is the same lady that represented high-speed rail in all of our previous lawsuits. So she understands what we're about. But
So she's unlikely to grant it.
well, Mike thought otherwise, but I don't know. They can appeal without getting that permission. They just thought it would be a little easier to get it scheduled and move it ahead if they do have that.
Could I add a little bit to
Yes,
that?
please do.
The last I heard from Mike Brady, which was just a couple of days ago, was that, first of all, let me back up a little. What they did was they asked for stipulated judgment, so they wouldn't have to have a whole trial on the items that the judge disapproved from our standpoint. Save that time in order to get to the appellate level quicker. And then, as you say, I guess we could appeal it whether the Attorney General agrees or not. But I was told that it wasn't so obvious that they were not going to agree to that, because I was told that Sharon couldn't respond immediately because she had some other personal issues going on, and this was not the most important thing on the plate.
Not on her
so-
plate, I'm sure.
Right, so there was some, so possibility is still out there that the Attorney General's office could agree to the appeal of the stipulated judgment.
It's all in state court.
It's all in state court,
It's in state court.
yes.
And why would they want it to be faster? To be
Well,
fast-tracked?
we waited for 2 years
Yeah, we'd like
to get a court date
Yeah.
for the initial trial. And it lasted an hour, and the judge's mind had already been made up. The Attorney General didn't even present her brief.
Okay, but why would she want to fast-track it for
Well,
us?
she wouldn't, but
She wouldn't necessarily
Okay.
I'm,
be too adverse to it, I don't think.
I'm not really holding my breath, Alex, but
Okay.
I've had limited exposure to her, so I don't know.
Okay.
She may be willing to do that. Has Atherton taken any action on joining the suit yet, Carol?
I can tell you that Mike Brady's been involved with Bill Connors, so
Good,
that I can.
so it's still under discussion. Fine.
What are you talking about?
I thought Atherton was.
litigation.
No,
applied.
they haven't formally joined the appeal yet.
Oh, the appeal,
Yeah.
Right.
oh, I see.
There's some conversations related to Kings County. It's just about scheduling figuring out where all the players are and when they can get it in front of the board of supervisors and other players that are in the game. So I think that we're watching as players organize.
So Kings County hasn't decided either?
Kings County had an issue with, if I'm not mistaken, related to legal counsel changeover.
Yes, I think that's correct, yeah.
So we were waiting a word from that transition.
Oh, okay. Well, I was under the impression that Kings County had approved going through with the appeal, but that,
And it may be more updated than the last council
I don't
meeting,
know,
so
I don't know.
I don't know anything other than it's in Bill Connor's hands.
On other issues concerning high-speed rail, I think you've all seen the 19th February letter from the Federal Railroad Administration to the High-Speed Rail Authority. Have you seen this?
Mhm.
No.
No.
I thought Robert sent that out. What it does, in effect, it's a notice of intent to terminate the contract effective almost immediately. It was 5 March was the effective date. And to de-obligate some $928 million from the High-Speed Rail Authority. And they cited a number of failures on the part of the authority. The state they have not been spending as much state money as they need to match the federal funds. They were off by about $100 million one month, and other months are not a whole lot better. They have no hope of completing the project by 2022, which is in the contract. In fact, the latest schedule I saw from the Community Workings Group is we won't have high-speed rail on the Peninsula line until 2027. And that's having done nothing to modify the track. That'll be at 79 mile an hour maximum speed on the present rails of the present grade crossings.
I think,
No quad gates, no 110 miles?
No, 79. They'll put the quad gates in later to move up to 110.
But the quad gates will let them move it up to 110.
Yeah, but they're not, in 2027, there will be no new quad gates, and they'll be operating their trains at a peak speed of 79 miles an hour.
How many sets of quad gates are necessary up and down the peninsula?
Oh, there are quite a few.
43, I think.
43 intersections.
There are
That they
43
need.
intersections,
At how many million apiece?
and they're eliminating a few with the San Mateo project and also in Burlingame. And Palo Alto and Menlo Park are still, have no idea what they really want to do. So that's still up in the air.
Palo Alto's actually considering a tunnel. $3 billion.
Yeah, actually, it came up again. That's been buried a half a dozen times, Greg.
No pun intended.
No pun intended.
Well, we'd like a tunnel too, for that matter.
Yeah, if they're gonna do it, just keep it coming.
There you go.
But I don't have $1 billion to contribute to it, so.
Is a tunnel that much more expensive than a trench?
Oh, it is much
Oh, yeah.
more.
Yeah,
So why wouldn't a trench do the job?
Well, that's normally why they build a trench.
the creeks are usually the problem with the,
Yes, the creeks are the problem.
Yeah.
And there are 2 creeks in Palo Alto in addition to San Francisco.
yeah. And it's problematic also because they're like on the borders too, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically they need to get cooperation from their neighboring towns as well.
Multi-jurisdictional.
Yeah.
And that's
Oh.
always fun.
Okay, one other item that may be of interest. One of the CCHSR supporters has put together a document being sent to the appropriate FRA officials requesting a technical evaluation of the structures that have been erected in the Central Valley. The issue here, the fallback position that the authority has expressed several times is that if all else fails, they'll run Amtrak trains down that line. And the issue here is whether those structures are built to support high-speed rail trains, which are much lighter than Amtrak trains, and if they will in fact hold Amtrak trains. If they have not, there's no plan B. It doesn't work. And that would be an interesting finding. I don't know what repercussions it might have, but it would certainly be of great interest.
Can you tell us who sent that letter in?
Yeah, Bill Warren.
Oh, okay. He's not with CCHSR.
Well, he's one of the fringe members like
Right.
me.
Right, there you go.
In fact, he's got my name on it.
Great, good.
Okay,
Can I ask a question?
yes,
It was
please.
shortly after our last meeting, I think Robert circulated a paper that was written by William Brindley and I think Warren, Mr. Warren,
Yes,
entitled something like "If you build it, they will not come" or something like that.
yeah, that,
Did that get much publication or distribution to
That-
people who should get it?
that described a study they made of 350 or 60 of the origin-destination pairs from which the High-Speed Rail Authority is claiming to attract passengers. And they identified that in only 7% of all of those was high-speed rail either no slower or no cheaper than, or no more expensive than either of the alternative modes. The thesis being that a sensible traveler looking at these options would not elect to go on high-speed rail. And that is intended to undermine the credibility of their Boston Systematics that does their patronage studies with their fancy econometric model.
Certainly if they're looking for private investment, somebody ought to read that.
Yeah, well, anyone who has an interest in it should read it
No,
because
it was a I mean, I didn't read it in great detail, but it's a very impressively documented report.
you mean you didn't read all the appendix that has all the cases in it? Yeah, that's a massive piece of work and it's very telling and it should get wide distribution and they're, William and Bill are trying to do that. And I don't know what their progress has been so far.
I think they routinely distribute that to a number of congressional
Yes, they do.
Congress members and to people
And
in
they'll be
the
sending
FRA
it to people
and
in the
and
FRA.
Department of Transportation.
Yeah.
Good.
But whether these people read it as carefully as we do is
Yeah.
also a question. Okay, well, I think that's enough on the litigation. The Dumbarton Rail project, Scott is not here. And so he is not available to make a report on that. As you know, what it amounts to is an agreement between Facebook and an organization called the Plenary Group and Samtrans for an 18-month feasibility study of putting rail in that corridor. And Samtrans, of course, is involved because they hold title to the corridor. And Jim Hartnett is also involved because, as you know, he wears three hats. He's both CEO of Caltrain, he's CEO of Samtrans, and he's the head of the San Mateo County Transit Authority. So anything that is done in transit is going to involve him in some way or another.
I was on the Dunbarton Rail Committee a number of years ago, and I recall that at that time they found that that bridge, which is almost 100 years old, was not suitable for carrying trains.
Yeah,
Now,
that is well established. There's no discussion about putting trains back on that bridge, Jack.
oh, there would be a new bridge.
There would be a new something.
Okay. I got the impression that they were still looking at the same bridge.
The publicity they've had says they are not.
Okay.
Whether someone will come up and say, hey, if we drive piles in right alongside these, it'll be just fine. I hope that doesn't happen.
Yeah, I think it's just the location. The bridge is really, like you say, non-existent. If you might, it's visually scrapped and structurally can't really deal with anything. So I think
Who's our representative on that, Scott?
Scott.
Because there's a big, this SB 50, you know, is ignoring the fact that Facebook and other companies like Facebook need to provide more housing, and I think that their effort on the tracks would help a lot if they would do that. But I assume they're doing it. It's just a matter of what degree.
Well, are they prepared to pony up $3 or $4 billion to do this?
I would think so, with the number of jobs they're adding.
Well,
I mean, that if there was a slide presentation given that showed the number of buildings you'd have to have around Apple, Facebook, and Google, and it was quite impressive to see the number of high-rise buildings you'd need to build to meet just the employees of those three companies, and it was unbelievable. But I don't, you know, no one's suggesting that, so I'm not saying that it's going to happen.
No.
But at least they're trying to. If they get the train going, they can at least get some people from across the bay to their jobs.
well, and if they can get some political pressure behind it, they may get some state money to support that. The MTA may cough up a little bit.
Give back the money they stole, $42 million.
I thought it was 90.
Well, my recollection may not be clear.
Well,
It was a lot.
it was a lot.
Malcolm
Who
claimed
gave the
90, didn't he?
presentation?
It was a group in Palo Alto. There were 300 people there who were complaining about the fact that Palo Alto has been declared, and I don't know whether Atherton has looked at that. Have we been declared an education premier location
No, and you're probably thinking of a Post article.
of the what?
A Post article related to concerns brought up by members in Palo Alto stating that because of the schools in Palo Alto, and I believe it is Mountain View as well, related to the impacts of schools and how their interpretation of the current draft of SB 50.
I don't know why we wouldn't be in that category. We have 9,000 students with all those private schools.
I don't think they're taking suggestions.
Say again? Well, I was just worried about it from a defensive standpoint.
Yes, we understand what you're saying.
Good. I'm glad that at least there's an understanding floating around.
So which super PAC do we all need to donate to get influence?
Some camouflage around the schools, maybe.
Yeah. Least amount of attention as possible.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the Denver Regional Transport.
Oh, I wanted to say one thing about Dunbar Rail.
Oh, yes,
I
please
just
do.
was reading, it looks like their investigation is going to also include non-diesel solutions. Oh no, it's non-diesel solutions only. So it looks like it's going to be either battery or the catenary system. So it's going to be electric. It's not going to just be like the Caltrain right now.
Well, let's hope it's battery.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's all.
Other
They've been
comments?
discussing the height of the exit and entry to the doors for the.
No, they have not.
You have 2 levels.
They haven't even decided on stations, where they're going to put stations yet, but just
Well,
the
there'll be
locomotion.
one right next to Facebook, I'm sure of
There'll
that.
be one right there, yeah.
Maybe 2.
Yeah,
Be a
maybe
heck of a
two.
battery, wouldn't it?
You can change out battery packs. There are battery-powered locomotives in service in Europe.
It'll probably be 10 years at least before this happens, and by then it'll be probably pretty good battery technology.
Battery technology is running faster than
Yeah.
most developments. Okay, grade separations. To my knowledge, there is no new information about this. Palo Alto is still up in arms. As Greg mentioned, they're looking at a tunnel again. Menlo Park has not reported back from the meeting that Greg and I attended, where they threw out the council's decision and told them to rethink it. So as long as they don't bring their berm across Ensign, we're okay. We can get the tracks at grade without exceeding a 1% grade. And I think that's been our position, and unless someone has any objections, I think probably ought to stay that way. But we need to watch it, have our interests very much at heart.
Well, they've got 800 million that's been committed to them to do something, Palo Alto.
Palo Alto does, yes.
So I mean, they're going to do something. It's just a matter of what. And I think that they've.
Well, they were going to close Churchill again, and they had how many people come to the meeting and raise fuss about that? It was a bunch.
Well, they had 300 meeting on SB 50. There was only 2 people there that were for it. So it was quite a meeting.
Gee, why did they let them in?
They almost got thrown out, I think. They did everything but wear a MAFA hat, so.
Okay, well, if there are no further comments there, staff member comments? Oh,
Well, it seems to me we kind of slid by the Denver regional thing.
Norris is not here.
Well, I understand, but the last council meeting, or the council meeting that we were at,
Oh,
there was some talk over that letter, and that information was not, in one form or another, going to be transmitted to Caltrain through this committee. Whatever happened, Kerry?
Well, you're exactly correct, back and forth like ping pong. I think there is no letter that has been sent, but I can tell you the question of the scenario of the Denver project has been brought to the attention of Caltrain to say, hey, you guys are aware of this, obviously. They are very much aware of it. So they took that into consideration when they were hiring them as consultants. So they're keeping an eye on that scenario. So
they've
very
hired the same
sensitive to-
consultants who've been working in Denver.
their response is, we're aware of it, we understand the issues that are going on in Denver, we're monitoring those issues, but, they don't feel that there's any concern related to
They're gonna be
their project.
prepared to hire one person for each crossing? Is that their retort?
They see what's going on in Denver, you know, I can't say that, I don't think that there are concerns on their part that the same scenario will exist in the Bay Area.
Well,
I think you need 3 per crossing. to
3?
operate. Well, you got 24 hours to cover, 3 8-hour shifts.
Don't you need one on each side, though?
Well, I haven't gone quite that far. I was going to bring the benefit of the doubt that one person
I
could
remember
handle
when
it.
when I was in high school, I did the midnight shift as a guard at a iron and zinc smelter. And I think if anybody wanted to slip in, there was no challenge.
Yeah, I mean, I live right there by the Fair Oaks crossing. What do they pay?
Yeah. Sure, it's curriculum.
you could watch out the window.
Oh, boy.
Well,
Especially if we rename the station.
well, that's right. We'll have to put that on our next agenda, so we can make a recommendation to council.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, committee members, staff, Alex, we just did that.
That was it. That was the
That was
Palo
it?
Alto discussion. Got it.
Well,
Thank you.
we're not doing anything.
Right.
We're gonna keep the track on the ground where it belongs and just let it go by.
And get quad gates put in it.
Yes,
Yeah.
get our
So-
quad gates.
So Kerry, I guess, mentioned the Post article on the Palo Alto
Yes.
business. There was the Post article. There was also a really long article in the Palo Alto Weekly
Yes.
that I
Yeah.
assume everybody has
Oh,
seen
yeah.
No.
Yeah, that was really
about the meetings in SB 50.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, very comprehensive. It's like you say, there were 2 people that showed up that were in favor of it.
so there's been a great deal of discussion on that,
Yeah.
and that's not actually our problem, but we are all interested.
Yeah.
Why isn't it our problem?
It has nothing to do with railroads.
Why, did the council, they sent a subcommittee of the council members?
Related to SB 50?
Well, I don't know if it was related to that, but indirectly it was.
Yes. 2 different, so.
But there's another one.
There's 2.
There are
So
2
there's
subcommittees.
Station is one thing, SB 50 is housing, and dealing with Stanford as well, so it's kind of got the housing element component to it. 2 separate committees. Subcommittees issued by the mayor. Rick
Was
and
there
I-
any decision on the station?
No. Rick and I are representing the town related to the station with Caltrains, so discussions related to Caltrains to see what is going on with that. And I think Elizabeth and Bill are on the housing component.
Are they gonna have a public hearing?
I'm not on that committee, so I can't speak for them. They,
Are you and Rick going to have public hearing?
we may at some point, but I think that right now, you know, it's all obviously just information, trying to figure out where everybody is.
It'll probably be the largest meeting you ever have, so I wouldn't put it off too long,
We might combine a few things with it.
based on the Palo Alto return.
Palo Alto's was quite the showing, and we obviously are monitoring other jurisdictions and their concerns.
I just wonder whether we should take a revote on our closing the station.
Absolutely not.
Because Jim wasn't here.
I think we made the right decision for the right reasons. If they close the station, they'll never reopen it. And so we should not give them an assist on that as long as we have any interest in having rail service there.
And if we want some leverage with them,
Do you agree with that, Jim?
as they,
Absolutely.
So you wouldn't have voted to close it?
Certainly not.
All right, well then I stand corrected.
This is not being
Really?
recorded, right? I don't think we should be talking about our strategy.
But I had spoken at a number of meetings on that
I
issue.
did not know that.
Yeah.
So it's 4-3, your vote would have made a lot of difference.
Just so we
Who
know.
made it
it's-
5-3?
Just so we
Well,
know,
that's the,
It's not on the agenda.
just so we know it's not on the agenda.
As I recall at the joint meeting of the Atherton and council and us, there was a lot of discussion maybe not a lot, about having another joint meeting on SB 50. And I don't know whether that's,
Who was gonna have another
And the-
meeting?
well, the same
I'm
two
gonna-
groups.
I'm gonna take a guess there may be another joint meeting, but I don't believe that the subcommittee people have had an opportunity to get together. So whatever comes out, we will know. We just don't know yet.
The SB 50 is more likely to be a public meeting than a joint meeting with rail, because while we're concerned with what happens there, it's not our principal activity.
Would it come out of, it was, the cutoff I thought was the 26th, did it come out of committee?
As I said before, this is not an item for further discussion because it's not on the agenda, so we can't really, but I can just tell you, it's, a subcommittee's got it, subcommittee hasn't even had it.
Your subcommittees,
So, I mean, it's something that it's on their radar.
good.
Okay, other committee member comments? We have no public.
Just like, David,
Yes.
are you responsible for these photos? I'm just wondering,
They're
I nobody's
actually-
commented on them, I'm just wondering what.
Robert actually submitted these comments.
They're in Burlingame, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, so this is just sort of give us an idea of what's
Of what they
coming
actually
to
look.
your
Yeah.
tracks and your roots, you know?
Because if everybody remembers correctly, the photographs that we saw previously were not ones that they actually had, they were gonna use. These are
Yeah.
actually ones that
Oh, I see, I
They
see.
were,
have been updated.
Thank you.
They're all in Burlingame?
Those are.
all right.
It makes the tall ones that cross two tracks look smaller than the little ones that just cross one.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
I think there's a perspective problem in there somewhere.
I think so.
Well, they're trashy looking.
But there are a number of them serving both tracks from one side. So we're not
the only-
being singled out for persecution, as we all believed at the time.
So I have a comment.
Yes,
Just
please.
about Newsom's State of the State address and high-speed rail. I know he's kind of waffled back and forth, but I think the gist that I got from is that he's not going to put any of his political capital into it and just do what needs to be done minimally to make sure no federal money has to be paid back, do the EIR, things like that, and then be done with it. Because he says the completion date is what, 2027?
Yes.
He'll be gone by then. It'll be someone else's. The next governor's problem, not his, whatever happens to it. And he's more interested in other initiatives that, you know, like the housing stuff and not really interested in Brown's high-speed rail project because there's just too much to do and he wants to focus on a few big things he wants to do.
Well,
Just my opinion of
No, you're-
reading of the State of State.
Agree entirely.
we can't argue with that position because there are things that are much more important. And it would be good if they could at least turn off the money stream to high-speed rail. But whether that will happen, we'll just have to wait and see.
No, I don't worry a whole lot about 2027, but that's just personal.
I don't either, for the same reason.
Neither does Newsom.
You probably.
Yeah,
In 2027, John, will be
can't-
98.
We'll have a rail in Central Valley and a lot of money spent.
It'll be 80.
No one will use it.
Hopefully I'll be dead.
Come on.
Are there other comments? Could we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Gad, we've
This
never
is a
had
record.
meeting this short
Yeah, this is
meeting
great.
experience.
Well, it's being recorded, so wait till the date goes. Two very important people that had two big topics. Did I say any more?
No,
Could have been a quarter to 9.
Thank you.
Good meeting, Paul, thank you.
Yes, well done. We're going to keep you on for